first time the number 3 car has led over 100 laps in a race since the 1998 Daytona 500 when Dale Earnhardt Sr. went on to win that race. Of course, we know the number 3 was gone for a long time after the 2001 Daytona 500, but since it's been back with Austin Dillon, first time he has done this. Matt, starting with you, was this redemption for Austin Dillon? And can people now move on from that 2024 finish?
Yes and no. I think the stat too is crazy to think about, right? 100 and it was the exact, I believe, 107 laps was the same that Dale led in that 500. So I didn't exist yet, so keep in mind that's how long ago it was. Not really that long ago, but I just like to throw that. I still got a little bit of youth left in me, right? But yeah, it's hard to forget what he did in 2024, but I think it definitely makes up for it, and it's redemption. It's funny that it seems like RCR has like the one good setup for Richmond, and then the rest of the year, Austin Dillon's running like 25th or worse. But he deserves it. I mean, he led this. He didn't lead a race high. Bubba Wallace led the most laps, but he was arguably the best car all day long, and he finished 4th in both stages. 54 points for Austin Dillon, probably the most he's ever scored in a Cup race. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I highly doubt he's ever scored more than that, just because of how good he really did. And just, yeah, I think it is a redemption feeling for that team. You know, it's like after being, I can't say abysmal, but they were 28th in points a lot of this season. And we were even talking here on Grid Network. And I still feel that he would be, him and Ty specifically, once they take over RCR, which you think that would be the case, they are great. Like, they would be great recruiters. How do you think one of the best drivers of all time ended up at RCR with Kyle Busch? But now it's like Austin Dillon, I mean, he deserved it. He really, I can't say it was belt to butt, but in that final stage, it was kind of belt to butt. So congratulations to the whole RCR organization, especially Austin Dillon, his 6th Cup win. The only thing that shocks me is that he's done, I believe, let me just check the number here, 433 Cup races in his career, and he's never led over 100 laps until yesterday. That was more shocking than anything. I felt like somebody who has an Xfinity and a Truck Championship and over 5 wins at the Cup level that and been in Cup that long had never led over 100 laps. So
congratulations at the Cup level.
Yeah. That was crazy to me. But yeah, congratulations to them. I think it was definitely redemption. And if you want to read more about it, go to gridnetworktv.com. My story's up there.
So I don't think that there is anything that Austin Dillon can do to wipe away the stain that was last year's finish from his resume at all. But I do think that what he did last night in racing Ryan Blaney for the lead in that final run before the final set of green flag pit stops was probably some of the most impressive driving I have seen out of Austin Dillon since he entered the Cup Series or since he's been in NASCAR as a whole. He finally proved to me that he can cleanly race with the big boys. And that is something I have constantly castigated him for over the years in his entire 12-year career. So, you know, in one regard, you definitely got to tip your cap to him and that 3-team. I mean, with this playoff format being as broken and goofy as it is, you can be good at one track and make the playoffs even after having an abysmal season. So, you know, it's great that, you know, he gets to auto-lock himself into the playoffs and knock out a Ford competitor. I mean, I'm sure Chevy's super happy about that. But I still feel like to some circles that this win is still a little bit overshadowed by some controversy. I felt that the 33 put on fresh tires towards the end. Granted, he did have a flat tire towards the end of the race, so there was a reason for him putting on fresh tires, but he zoomed by the 48 and then sat right in front of him. Very interesting how that works. The 88, an RCR affiliated aligned car, also just hung outside Alex Bowman for 15 to 20 laps towards the end of the race. The 16 was also up there racing the second place car really hard. So you do have to wonder, could Alex Bowman, with how much gap he was chewing into when he was running by himself, if he would have been able to make it up there if the lap cars had left him alone. But I still think at the end of the day, Austin Dillon had a career day. I think that he put together a really strong performance, and there wasn't a stupid caution at the end to completely take it out of his hands. So obviously a tip of the cap to RCR and the number 3 bunch. I think that hopefully they can, take some of this positive momentum and transfer it over to the 8 car. I think that Kyle Busch deserves a victory if we're going to keep handing Austin Dillon all the good setups. So yeah, it's a little unfortunate that the driver for RCR that I think everybody else would love to see win is still languishing in the, teens and 20s every race weekend, while we give the owner's grandson a good setup to go win a race with. It just feels a little odd to me.
I really like what you said, Tanner, about it's not going to erase what happened in 2024. And I think that's something Austin Dillon, while he won't publicly say he regrets that move, how that all transpired, because we're racers. We got to go out there. You got to get the win. But definitely crossed the line. Not going to admit it. But I think this goes a long way in just reestablishing that, look, you give him a good car, a good opportunity to go out there, get that win, he could get the job done. What's going on with Richard Childress Racing? The fact that they're slumping, really nothing going on for this team up until the Richmond weekend. And as you mentioned, with Kyle Busch just struggling, not being there week in and week out, I feel this is just one of those race weekends where if it wasn't for this race weekend, I think, again, they would be going to Daytona, both of them, must-win situations, not in a great spot where they have to go out there and get a win. And then putting themselves in a situation of controversy of, okay, are you going to push somebody out of the way for the win? And with Austin Dillon, even his Daytona 500 win, we know how that happened with Aric Almirola. I think for Austin Dillon to get this win is to really show, look, I could do this behind the wheel. I just need that car to be perfect. I need the pit crew to do a good job. Really, besides that last caution last year, the pit crew, that was their time to shine. It's just one of those deals where they have to be perfect week in and week out to beat some of these bigger teams. I think it just really shows the capability this team does have when everything goes right. They just have to put everything together. Because Richard Childress Racing, it has been a very interesting few weeks. Let's start with the Austin Dillon controversy at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That led to the controversial blue-collar team comment by Richard Childress claiming that he's being picked on because they are a blue-collar team, which a lot of folks, I feel, dispute that. Austin Hill was then suspended. Comes back, his first statement, he didn't do anything wrong. Then he goes to Watkins Glen. There's the big crash. Kyle Busch, not a good night, especially with that big one. Chase Elliott comes out. People are talking about, did he rage quit? Is he back to 2008 Kyle Busch? What's going on? He's going to be at a must-win situation in Daytona. But for Austin Dillon, what he did, just clean race. We can't figure out what's going on with the 88 and the others and the 48. But for Austin Dillon's side, he put everything he needed to do out there and get that win. And one of the things I found interesting in the post-race press conference, he was talking about how at times him and his brother have butted heads with Richard Childress. Of course, that's difficult. It's their grandpa. But it seems like they recognize the team needs to do something drastic. We talked about on this show, Austin Dillon could be potentially a better role in team management. The fact he brought in Kyle Busch, managing the team going forward. Tanner, I know you said that, so I'll start with you on this one. Can Austin Dillon rally the RCR organization to close the season off strong and improve what has been a dismal 2025 leading up to Richmond.
Unless they can find their spy or whatever it was that was able to steal this setup from Joe Gibbs Racing last year, no, I'd say probably not. But I feel that RCR, outside of this one racetrack, doesn't show the speed necessary to compete for a title. And if Austin Dillon is your best hope to go win a title as an organization, and you think you're going to win a title, I think you've got another thing coming. I just feel that coming into this weekend, the 28th driver in points is going to get to race for a title over guys that have been in the top 10 all season long, like Chris Buescher, Alex Bowman, Tyler Reddick is even at threat to miss the playoffs now. I think that as far as this season is concerned, and as far as RCR is concerned, coming down the stretch here with the last 11 races, I mean, obviously winning yesterday is going to guarantee the 3 team a top 16 finish in points this year that I don't think they've earned. As far as Kyle Busch is concerned, though, I mean, what do you have to look forward to outside of Daytona? Like, I think ultimately if you're Kyle Busch, you just want to get back to victory lane no matter what. And I think a lot of people in the sport would love to see that at this point, especially now that we've had to see Austin Dillon, his teammate, win 2 times in the time that it's been since Kyle Busch last won a race, which, again, really insane to say. But I just feel that with the whole RCR team, they've been posturing more than they've done actual competing. I think that they live too far in the past, and I obviously don't think that anybody worth $250 million is certainly blue collar by any chance. So, yeah, I think that if RCR wants to, compete coming down the stretch, they need to, really get their ducks in a row and hope for other people to have worse luck than them. So, yeah, I don't really have a whole lot of faith in them coming into the playoffs, especially if it's going to be with the 3 team and the 3 team only.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to figure out it's hard to say specifically, like, you have to define it. What is a rally for RCR versus a rally for another team? Is a rally for RCR now finishing 15th instead of 16th in the playoff standings, which is impressive. I mean, like I said, as much as we have trashed Austin Dillon and stuff like that, he really did deserve this victory, regardless of how they got the setup and stuff like that. He did it, and he still, to this day, I still think he was a more deserving victory in the sense than Harrison Burton's last year. And I think the playoff system and what it does kills the underdog victories. I think if this didn't guarantee a Austin Dillon playoff spot, I think we'd all be – I think people who watch NASCAR specifically in the playoffs and see a guy like Buescher, who's probably going to miss now despite being incredible this season, I think it stains that. And then Harrison Burton's victory was absolutely incredible, and it took a little bit for it to really sink in to be like, yeah, this was a great win. And what really makes people upset about it is the guy second to last or last in the full-time standings is now fighting for a playoff spot. So that's just that. But for them, it is interesting with Richard Childress Racing that they have 4 cars, 2 in Cup, full-time, 2 in Xfinity. And the one guy who has not won yet is arguably the greatest to ever do it, and that's Kyle Busch. And it's just 80-ish races now winless, while Austin Dillon has 2 wins at the same track. Since Kyle Busch's last victory is really insane to me. I think they got a lot of talent, though, in the stable as well, with Jesse Love coming up through the ranks, regardless of what he did and the tires and everything, being in front of Bowman and stuff like that during the race. And then Austin Hill's got a lot of talent despite the mistakes that he makes. So I think you're going to have 3 of your 4 cars full-time across NASCAR making the playoffs, and only 2 of them I think can make a legitimate run. I don't think Austin Dillon will. But then you go back to that argument Tanner and I were talking about on the pre-race show. You really started. It's like a lot of people complained about Shane Van Gisbergen only being, I'm looking 24th in points, and then but everyone was quiet about Josh Berry only being 4 points ahead of him at the time. But so who was more undeserving, right? But now you look and Shane Van Gisbergen has 4 more points than Austin Dillon right now, which makes Austin Dillon technically the worst in the points that is now going to be a playoff driver. So I wonder if that narrative is going to switch over from Austin Dillon or from Shane Van Gisbergen to Austin Dillon. But I think the whole thing about road courses and ovals is going to make that argument confusing for people. So, but yeah, I think I agree with a lot with what Tanner said as well. I don't know how if they're going to rally, but I think this is definitely a great positive momentum for this team. And then I think not the controversy, but the conversation that was like put in the, I guess the media center where Austin Dillon said that him and his brother kind of disagree with a lot of what Richard Childress has said and how the team is right. And I think we've said on the show, and I think we can all agree, Austin Dillon will be, in my opinion, a very good team. I can't say team principal, but the head of the company. I think Austin Dillon is incredible with what he's able to do, obviously bringing the talent over like that. And it's interesting to see now that there's more disagreements behind the scenes than I think we realize about how this team is going. So I guess whatever happens, hopefully it can get Kyle Busch a victory sometime this soon, because I think everyone, even Kyle Busch haters, are now like, oh, well, now this kind of sucks that he hasn't won in 80-something races. But we'll see what happens.
The only thing Austin Dillon needed to do after last year and having a good car but dumping at the end and still keeping the win but not going to the playoffs, the best thing he and RCR could do this year is just show up and say, hey, same car, same track, we've got this, and do it. And also lead the most laps in the number 3 since the Dale Earnhardt Sr. It's a stat. I know. It's a stat. It had to happen. It's inevitable.
I know it's a stat, but Dale had 200 laps at Daytona. Austin had twice as many laps. He still could only tie him. He couldn't surpass him.
Anyway, I think the best thing Austin Dillon could do is actually go out there and win a race fair and square the following year. No, it's not mopping up what he did last year. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying, you know what? Back to neutral. You're not mopping it up, but to me, it's kind of like, okay, you got a dominant car. You did it the right way this time. Congratulations.
Yeah. Well, and again, I will say, again, I know we try to be neutral on these shows here. I've not been particularly fond of some of Austin Dillon's driving over the years. I will say, having had, I guess now 48 hours almost to sit on this win here and react to it, I can give credit where it is due. It is easily the most impressive of his 6 wins so far. Again, I know we talked about it at the start of the show. There was a little bit of talk about. I caught a few minutes of on track this afternoon as well. But people talking about SVG trying to stay on the lead lap, and everybody talking about how he needs to start running well on ovals. And he finished 14th. Was close to the lead lap in a long green flag run situation. The more I think about it, the more I think to myself, yeah, it's a little shady. The radio communications. I think on Jesse Love's radio it was. Alex Bowman certainly wasn't happy. I don't know if Bowman would have had enough time to catch him anyway. And even if he had, still easily the most impressive overall race that Austin Dillon has put together. There was no fuel mileage. There was no controversy. He was hitting the leader on the last lap. This wasn't a super speedway race. This wasn't a package where you couldn't pass because of what NASCAR decided to do in 2020 and the tire situation in Texas. He earned this one. I will give him credit where it is due. And it's a badly needed once shining moment for everybody over at RCR. There is no doubt about that.
Yeah, this was tough. This was Richmond. It's not an easy place to get your best overall victory of your career. So well done.